Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Rabab Kaur and I am a physiotherapist who have specialized in musculoskeletal. Today I am speaking on the behalf of School of Medical Allied Sciences, Valgotia's University Department of Physiotherapy. So today we'll be discussing another practical in biochemistry, that is our practical number 8. The topic for which we'll be discussing is to classify and assess the mechanism of hormone action. We all know that hormones are responsible for various chemical reactions in our body and which is released by endocrine system of our body. We'll be discussing them in detail. How are they classified and what is the mechanism of action of a hormone? Recapitulations. So in our previous practical, we actually talked about what is cholesterol. We discussed that cholesterol is a complex lipid which is steroid in nature. It is a derivative of cyclopentanoperihydropentane ring with 27 carbons. We also talked about how the cholesterol is synthesized and structure and step-by-step formation of the cholesterol. So in other words, we actually discussed about the exact and clear-cut mechanism of cholesterol metabolism. But today we'll be reading detailed information about classification and assessment of mechanism of hormonal action. We'll be also learning about the hormonal signaling and the steps involved in hormonal signaling. We'll be also classifying hormones into lipid and water-soluble hormone receptor activation, and we'll be discussing how both of these work in a proper cyclic manner. Introducing the topic, what is a hormone? A hormone is a chemical messenger that enables communication between cells. Hormones are secreted by the glands of the endocrine system and they serve to maintain homeostasis and to regulate numerous other systems and processes, including reproduction and development. So this is what the hormones do. Not just they help in reproduction and development of body, all the other processes of the body are regulated by the hormones. Now to brief us about the mechanism of hormonal action, I have included a short video and we will be discussing more detailed about mechanism of hormone action through that video. About the steps involved in the hormonal signaling. Now, the glands of the endocrine system secrete hormones directly into the extracellular environment. The hormones then diffuse to the bloodstream via capillaries and are transported to the target cells through the circulatory system. This allows hormones to affect tissues and organs far from the site of production or to apply systematic effects to the whole body. Hormone-producing cells are typically specialized and reside within a particular endocrine gland, such as thyrocytes in the thyroid gland. Hormones exit their cell of origin through the process of exocytosis. So the hormones are generated in a cell which are their cell of origin. So hormones, while exiting their cell of origin, the entire process is known as exocytosis. Cellular recipients of a particular hormonal signal may be one of several cell types that reside within a number of different tissues. This is so in the case of insulin, which is secreted by pancreas, which triggers a diverse range of systemic physiological effects. Different tissue types may also respond differently to the same hormonal signal. Hormones activate target cells by diffusing through the plasma membrane of the target cells that are lipid-soluble hormones. We'll be discussing about them much more in detail in the coming slides. To bind to a receptor protein within the cytoplasm of the cell or by binding a specific receptor protein in the cell membrane of the target cell, which are water-soluble proteins. In both cases, the hormonal complex will activate a chain of molecular events within the cell that will result in the activation of a gene expression in the nucleus. The reaction of the target cells may then be recognized by the original hormone-producing cells, leading to a downregulation in hormone production. This is an example of homeostatic negative feedback loop. So we can see this is a steroid hormone. We have discussed about non-steroidal and steroidal action of a hormone. So for example, if this is a steroid hormone, it enters into the cytoplasm of a cell and binds to the steroid receptor. The steroid hormone gets binded to the steroid receptor in the cytoplasm. From that, it enters the nucleus and the complex binds to the receptor sites on chromatin, activating the messenger RNA transcriptions and hence activating the gene expression. So these are the steps which are involved in hormonal signaling. Now to summing up of steps of hormonal signaling, first step is biosynthesis of a particular hormone in a particular tissue. Second, storage and secretion of the hormone. Third, transport of the hormone to the target cells, tissues or organs. Fourth, recognition of the hormone by an associated cell membrane or an intracellular receptor protein. Fifth, relay and amplification of the received hormonal signal via a signal transduction process. Sixth and the last step, potential feedback to a hormone producing cell. So these steps actually summarizes how a hormonal signaling happens. So now after looking at the steps involved in hormonal signaling and mechanism of action of hormones, we were supposed to discuss in this topic today about the lipid and water-soluble hormone receptor activation. So let's learn about what are these and then we'll be one by one looking at their videos, how their mechanism of action is. First of all, looking at lipid-soluble hormone receptor activation. The nuclear hormone receptors are activated by a lipid-soluble hormone such as estrogen binding to them inside the cell. Lipid-soluble hormones can cross the plasma membrane, whereas water-soluble hormone receptor activation, water-soluble hormones such as epinephrine bind to a cell surface localized receptor, initiating a signaling cascade using intracellular second messengers. Now let's take a look one by one at their mechanism of action. First, we'll be starting with lipid-soluble hormone receptor activation. What we have read so far. Now we saw the classification of the hormones, that is the water-soluble hormones and the lipid-soluble hormones. We discussed about the assessment of mechanism of hormonal action, in which we actually discussed the steps involved in the hormonal signaling, and we saw how they bind to the steroid hormone, how it binds to the receptors in the cytoplasm, how does the non-steroidal activation of a hormone happens. Next, we discuss the hormonal signaling and steps of hormonal signaling. We discussed about lipid and water-soluble hormones and their receptor activation in detail. So this is all about hormones, which are the major source of our body. They are secreted by the endocrine system, and the entire human body process is dependent on this hormonal action. There are hundreds of hormones in our body, all of which are responsible for different kinds of actions to cause in our body. So we cannot understand or know the signs and symptoms of a person, what is happening to that person, unless we are clear about the physiological process, its more activation or lesser activation of a particular hormone in the body. Hormones are to be studied in detail, and we will be discussing about them in our further theoretical classes. I hope this session was clear to you guys. Thank you so much.